water is all the way up into our house. It's flooded. It's flooded over. Water is coming up so bad. I don't know what to do.
A flood emergency in Kentucky. Rescues underway, millions more at risk today.
The flood of 2022 was referred to as the 1,000-year flood.
That water was powerful enough to sit here and move houses off foundations.
You said you have 5 grandchildren stuck?
Yes, and 2 adults.
2 adults.
My daughter, she said, Mom, we're not gonna make it.
From the helicopter, just devastation everywhere I saw. This was on a whole new level.
It was harder and harder to hold on to that tree. I remember taking my last breath. I knew I couldn't swim. I knew I didn't have a chance.
Looks pretty good outside today. Plenty of sunshine helping us warm up.
Eastern Kentucky is gorgeous. Once you get out east, you get more into the mountain areas. Every bit of it's beautiful.
Down in Eastern Kentucky, the devil tried and he failed.
In the spring and summer, it's as green gets. In the fall, when the leaves change, it just gets more beautiful. People give you the shirt off their back. Once they get to know you, you're a friend for life.
To follow these mountains forever on home.
Our home was a 32 by 80 double wide. It may not have been much, but it was the home of my dreams. Me and my husband, Craig, worked very hard to get it where it was. It was surrounded by Troublesome Creek. We would have bonfires and cookouts, you know, things like that next to the creek. And it was a beautiful place.
I've lived here my entire life with my husband, Randall. We have 5 kids. My mother, Barbara, lived about a mile away from us at the time. She's the best grandma. She's a great mom. We're very close.
Kayla thought she could not have children, and she was surprised in her 30s. She had already taken on Randall's children, her stepkids.
When me and Kayla first bought the place, we started from the ground up. We remodeled one room at a time. Had everything just perfect the way she wanted it.
It may have been a mobile home, but it was really nice. Until the night of the flood.
Kentucky has creeks, rivers, giant rivers, and is actually prone to getting a lot of flash flooding. But certainly the floods of 2022 were the most extreme.
We've got showers and thunderstorms coming down across Kentucky, and right now we've got flash flood watches and warnings in effect.
About the 24th, there were a continuous line of thunderstorms that were building and would just roll across eastern Kentucky up into the mountains. Over time, the ground was just super saturated. We were getting some reports of some minor flash flooding here and there, nothing alarming. But then, the night of the 27th, they started predicting more and more rain.
Waves of heavy rain have moved through our area here in eastern Kentucky.
The day of the flood was a normal day. My husband, my son Craig, and my daughter Andrea all lived with me. My son and I had made plans that we were going to have a dinner and we were going to play cards for the evening, which is something we always did. It started raining, no big deal. It wasn't that much rain. It wasn't that hard or anything like that.
We was sitting there playing cards, drinking a little bit, and then all of a sudden we was getting alerts on our phone. Like there was all these other areas that were flooding. And the next time we looked outside, it was in our yard. Everybody just started panicking. There was so much water.
My husband parked his truck up against the back door, thinking that we could all jump out the back door to safety. At that point, I could see the water was almost in the bed of his truck.
And then next thing we know, it was starting to come inside the house. The floor was completely covered within minutes. My dad was trying to hold the French doors that we had in the kitchen shut. And then eventually the water pressure got too much and they just slung open.
And then we called 911.
We have nowhere to go. We're on top of the counters. We have nowhere. We're about to drown out of this house.
As the water is getting higher and higher in the house, I panicked. I do not know how to swim. I am petrified of water. I really thought I was gonna die. My whole family was gonna be dead.
My son had woken me up and said, "Mom, you gotta come see. It's flooding really bad." And I just said, "Oh my God, what about Kayla?" I knew it was bad, and I immediately started to call. And there was no answer. Called again, no answer, it was going to voicemail. With each phone call, I was a nervous wreck.
What initially woke me up was Randall screaming my name.
At first, I thought someone had maybe left the bathtub on or, a sink or something. But once I actually got in the water, realized how high it was already, I knew it was too late. We were stuck.
Everything was pitch black. The electricity was off. You couldn't see anything.
You could hear trees cracking, breaking, and you could actually hear waves hitting the sides of the house.
The water is coming in way too fast. It's probably waist deep. The kids are terrified. The babies are screaming. You just watch your whole life go down in the water. And then you're wondering if you can save your children. So you start to panic.
I'm hearing the news reports come in, and it was one big round of storms, and the next day another big round of storms.
This is a pretty dangerous situation. We have a flash flood emergency in effect.
It was not localized flooding, it is mass flooding. With over 4,000 square miles of eastern Kentucky being flooded, and the floods hitting different points at different times. Some were flooded in the middle of the night, and some not until the early morning. Entire communities underwater, cut off from everything, and it's just really devastating.
I had some issues sleeping that night. I'm not too sure if it was due to all the weather reports. I was alone because my dad was gone for a work thing. And at that time, I was 17 years old. I looked over at Sandy and she was laying calmly in her bed as if nothing was wrong.
She's had Sandy since she was 4. They were a little team.
My home was directly in the corner of a river and a creek. And my grandfather's home was just across the yard from me.
We are very close. And we expected some heavy rain. So I just worried about her.
I woke up at 4 or 5 a.m. and I heard gurgling noises coming from my bathroom. And I got a really bad feeling that something was very wrong. So I walked closer, looking out the sliding door to see that there was floodwaters surrounding the whole neighborhood. I went to grab my phone to try to call my grandfather. There was no service. I tried calling my mom and dad. No service. Then that water started bubbling through the kitchen tiles. I went into panic. I was completely petrified.
I couldn't go between where I was and where she was. When I stepped onto the ground down the steps, it was over my shoulders. Panic is the word. I worry about losing my granddaughter.
As the water is getting higher and higher in the house, we had to stand up on the kitchen counters just to stay out of the water.
The flood pushed a lot of water in the house. There was no more preventing it from coming through, and it got worse from there.
We seen our sheds float off. We seen my truck eventually float off. We started seeing the neighbor's trailer just barely move up and down just a little bit. You could not see the windows of the home anymore.
We noticed that it was starting to lift up off of its foundations.
It was not only bobbing up and down, it started to actually flow towards us.
It hit our house, and the next thing we know, our trailer broke loose. We could feel it start moving.
The house started to break up. It kind of felt like that was going to be the moment that I was going to die.
I remember taking my last breath, and I remember giving up. I knew I couldn't swim. I knew I didn't have a chance.
The house broke in half, and then whenever it hit the bridge, it disintegrated into a million different pieces.
From that point on, I don't remember anything other than hit my head on the bridge.
We just all went separate ways and never knew if the other one was going to be okay.
When I came up out of the water, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anybody. I really thought my whole family was going to be dead.
Kayla called me, and she was floating the kids on a mattress to keep them safe. I told her she might need to get on top of her trailer, that it was going to be really bad. And she said, I'll call you back. I gotta save my battery.
The water is about up to our midsection, and I'm like, we need to try to get up on the roof.
I opened the door, water just came in. It was just chaos. And we had to just push our way through it.
Randall was very brave. He went out first into that water and climbed up.
Kayla handed me Coda. He was crying. He was throwing a fit. I was scared I was going to drop him. The older boys didn't have too much trouble climbing up.
And the whole time, I'm just begging them, do not let go of those babies.
Kayla hadn't called me back, so I got in my Jeep, and as I was driving down there, I just kept praying, God, please let her be okay.
In eastern Kentucky, it went from a forecast of about 4 inches of rain to a forecast of 8 inches of rain. And then later we found out that in some places they got 12 inches of rain.
This is historic flooding. There's so many water rescues ongoing right now. They can't get crews out fast enough to rescue people. We did not realize it would be this bad.
We were getting reports over the radio from first responders. The water had just flooded everything out. Road access is cut off. People can't get anywhere.
There's people in dire need of help and that is actively dying.
and you can't even leave the area because you're blocked in by debris and floodwaters. It was a nightmare here.
And I come down to the Hyman exit. I was expecting it to be bad, but not that bad.
If you would say spell your name?
Barbara Wicker.
Then the gentleman asked, could he film a little bit?
You said you have 5 grandchildren stuck?
Yes, and 2 adults.
2 adults?
Yes, their porches has been knocked off. The water is up to their doors. I can't reach them. I can't reach 911. I can't reach nobody.
Well,
I can't get to them. Nobody can get to them.
Have you ever experienced anything like this?
No, this has never been this bad.
I was looking around, and I thought I saw her back porch. I just got back in my Jeep, sat there, and I prayed.
We finally made it up on the roof, and it was freezing. I was definitely worried about hypothermia. With Spencer being so young and little, the water at this point was up to the roof. We watched houses float by, and my only thought was, when is our home going to break loose? I tried to calm my children, even though in my head we were going to die.
The water was rising quickly in the kitchen. I was sitting on the kitchen table, Sandy in my arms, when I realized that the phones were not working. I yelled out of the window because I had no idea if my grandfather was still in his house or not.
She was not just talking, she was screaming out in terror.
My grandfather stepped out on his porch and he yelled, "It's okay, Chloe. Just stay put."
I was trying to keep her from losing it. I thought, as long as she was in her house, we're going to be all right.
Even standing on the kitchen counter, I was not out of the water. The water was so cold that it felt like it was stinging. I knew I needed to get out, so I tucked Sandy and I went out onto the small deck from the sliding door. The water was about 10 feet off the ground. At one point, a whole semi-truck floated down the river behind my house. There was noises all around me. People screaming, things breaking.
I could see her down there, and she was panicking.
Heavy overnight rains swallowing entire towns.
All right, bam. Don't let go. With so many that are missing, the death toll most likely is going to go up. This is going to be really bad.
Kentucky is under a state of emergency. Water rescues still underway to help people stranded. The National Guard stepping in to help by air and on the ground.
I got a call from my brigade commander and said, get your crews ready. We were definitely getting there as fast as we could.
Any aircraft 80 on Victor. F415. Y'all need us to relay some people back to Hazard for you?
As we were going out, I was busy in the back prepping my gear. When I'd finally look out, it's just devastating. Collapsed buildings, cars everywhere, people on rooftops. I've seen a lot of devastation. This was on a whole new level.
I don't remember anything other than hitting my head on the bridge and coming up in a debris pile. Whenever I crawled out, I was in nothing but underwear, my American flag boots, and a t-shirt. That's all I washed up in. There was noises everywhere. There was trees breaking, stuff hitting other people's houses. I didn't know where my mom was at, my sister, my dad. I didn't know where any of them were at. And the feeling that was going through my head was like, they're everyone dead. I'm by myself now. It was a couple hours later, I started hearing screaming.
I started screaming for help. I'm trying to figure out where I am. All of a sudden, this little head pops up over the guardrail. It was my son running up and down the bridge. I was overjoyed. I didn't want him to be the only one alive. I can't find my husband and my daughter, but I was glad there was somebody.
She was stuck in a tree wrapped around it, hanging on for dear life.
So I climbed as high as I could and I held onto that tree. But I kept sliding down it. It was harder and harder to hold onto that tree. I thought for sure the tree was actually gonna go in the water, and so was I.
The water was still rising. My mom kept hollering like, somebody help, somebody help. And then I noticed that my sister was in an electric pole behind me.
When I was in the water, I was getting hit by everything possible. And every time I got hit, I felt like I was getting tiny cuts all over my body. I grabbed the last thing possible. It was a power pole. And I felt something dripping down my back. And whenever I stuck my hand back there, my whole entire hand went into my back. I had a huge gash.
With how fast that water was moving, there was nothing that I could do to help get either one of them. I was just screaming and telling Mom not to give up because she kept saying that she can't hang on any longer. My sister, I was telling her the same thing.
I just felt so alone. My mom still wasn't safe. So I was just wondering if she was gonna make it and if my dad was alive, if they were gonna find my dad.
I was standing on the deck, and the floodwater was at my waist. I knew I needed to leave. I was able to see a garage rooftop straight forward from me. It was like nearly the only thing that was not underwater. When I lowered Sandy into the water, she started to sink. I knew right then that I had to find something she could float in or on to get across the water. I noticed couch cushions were floating. I put a plastic container on top of the couch cushion, then put Sandy inside, and it floated. I took a step off, pushing her forward, and I fell into the water, and I used one arm to push her forward and my other arm to push me forward.
All of a sudden, there's Chloe. She's in that cold water, about 11 feet deep, with extreme danger of being killed by a log, a piece of a car, anything.
There was a current that started to push us sideways, and I was scared for my life.
Troublesome Creek, it's been a bad place for flooding. People was in dire need of help there, so we knew we had to go. Finally, the water receded enough to where we could get through. As soon as we turned on Highway 550, we meet water, and we can't go no farther. And we seen a big fish in the middle of the road, so I said, well, I'm gonna stop and kick this fish back over in the water, you know? And then we hear somebody hollering for help. I look over in the middle of the river, and there's a guy hanging onto a tree. I was like, holy crap. His leg was wedged between a tree, just barely hanging on. And I started hollering over, just hang on, you know, don't let go of whatever you do. There's massive trees floating down the river, and they're going right by this guy. Well, we couldn't do nothing until the water went down. So I started hollering at 911, we need a helicopter. We was there for hours. He kept hollering, "Lord, don't let me drown. Please shoot me." I mean, it was horrible. Finally, a helicopter came, hovered over us. It was some hope. You could see on his face, peace come over when that helicopter come over. And it circled us and hovered right over top of him and left.
The helicopter come here on 550 and he left. I don't know where he went.
When they were seeing aircraft fly over, it is, am I the best crew for this? Our other aircraft went out there, was having trouble finding the victim. The wires that cross the hilltops out there are almost invisible during the day. If we hit something and we down an aircraft, you made a worse situation out of an already bad situation.
It was probably the awfulest feeling ever. At times I had to turn my head because I didn't want to watch a man die. I didn't know what else to do besides hit my knees and start praying for that man.
We've got bodies, multiple bodies going down the river. People are hanging on to whatever they can.
There was a guy in the middle of the river begging for his life. He would go unresponsive, his head would bob underwater, and he would come straight back out of it. We definitely thought then this guy was gonna die. We would have never made it to him alive ourselves. Somebody had to come from out of the air and drop down and get him. Thank the Lord, that's what happened.
Another air crew came over and they left. And my crew jumped on that rescue.
It was unreal. I mean, the guy that was just dangling from a rope come out of the sky and saved the day.
He was hard to find. My crew chief spotted him, and then we started coming up with our plan about how we're gonna get in there. When I got to him, I don't think he had much longer. He's very cold, barely responding to me, but he's hanging onto this tree for dear life. As soon as I got him into the aircraft, he just collapsed.
Well, this guy's been in the water for a long time.
He was just uncontrollably shaking. He's been hypothermic for who knows how long. So, definitely one of those, I need to get him to the hospital immediately.
Kayla called me. They had made it on top of her trailer. I told her to try to stay strong.
It was pouring the rain. I had Spencer, and he just kept telling me that he was cold and he wanted his soft blankie.
Started raining again harder, and you could hear more houses falling, hear them cracking and then give way and hear the splash.
There was a lady down the street from us. Her mobile home broke in half and floated away.
She called. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Mom, we're not gonna make it."
And I made sure she knew I loved her and tell Randall's family that he loves them, and it was the worst night of my life.
I was pretty determined to go to the garage rooftop. I didn't think there was any other options for me. The swim was like a blur to me. Sandy was floating in the plastic bin. She had no idea what was going on. There was so much floating in the water. The water was ice cold.
It was an unbelievable risk. She could easily have been killed.
Adrenaline was what got me through the swim. Finally making it to the garage rooftop, I slid Sandy halfway up on it and then quickly dragged myself on top.
I looked at it as a miracle. She shouldn't have made it, and she did.
But now we're stuck. I was drained and freezing on the rooftop. Sandy was whining, she was scared. The water was rising and rising, and it got really close to my legs.
She probably wasn't going to be able to stay out there. I was calling 911, and they were saying that the boats were out, but they would get one as soon as they could.
I was starting to believe that the rooftop was going to go underwater.
My neighbor seen that I was on the power pole and that my mom was in the tree. I thought I was gonna fall. But then my neighbor got his excavator and his son helped me get into the bucket.
After that, my only worry was to get my mom out of that tree.
I couldn't hang on any longer. And I see my son just keep running back and forth. And then I noticed the helicopter.
There was a Black Hawk who hovered over top of the tree that she was in.
We're just having a look from a high recon, 200-300 feet up in the air, trying to look at what hazards are around the area. Finding your approach to victims. It's a very risky scenario. The rotor wash coming off of the helicopter is 60, 70 miles an hour. If somebody is on a very precarious perch in a floodwater, you could push them off into the water. You may only get one shot.
All the limbs were breaking from the tree. I just closed my eyes and held on to the tree. And all of a sudden, I heard a voice.
I was coming in and I kind of penetrate the canopy of the tree. I look and we kind of lock eyes. I do remember seeing fear in her eyes. And I said, "We have to go now. Come to me now." And she was very hesitant. As soon as she got within my arms, I just grabbed her. And I don't think I've ever held on to someone so hard. And up we go.
When I got in the helicopter, he said, "Are you all right?" I said, "No." I'd seen my daughter and I'd seen my son and I knew they were okay, but I couldn't find my husband.
And I was like, "It's okay. We're rescuing people and I'm getting ready to go right back out. Tell me what he looks like. I'll keep an eye out." And she starts describing dark hair, stocky guy. And I was like, wait a minute. I think I just rescued him.
As the water was rising and getting closer to my legs, I started to panic. I didn't know what to do.
It was still rising until it got within a foot and a half of Chloe. And all of a sudden, we come around the house. There's my nephew, Larry, in a yellow kayak.
I had no idea my cousin, Larry, was gonna come. I told him to take Sandy first. He took her around the corner to his friend. Then he came back to get me. As we turned the corner, I was able to walk out of the water. It was like, okay, I'm safe.
The ordeal was over. But the feeling of knowing that we lost everything was already immediately present. A lot of people around the area were flooded. Several thousand people. That was tough to deal with.
Realizing everything I lost, that my house is completely destroyed, that I will not be going back there again. I was very sad, but I had Sandy with me. I was able to hold her, and that gave me a little hope.
We was all just as close as we could get to each other for hours and hours. The kids were probably feeling in their heads that we probably wasn't going to make it. And they just wanted to, you know, hold their little brothers for a while.
The trailer shifted once. If we would have been there much longer, the trailer would have eventually broken. I don't know if it was a miracle or what, but it didn't.
Then the water had went down. It wasn't raining anymore. Finally, we were able to actually get off of the roof.
Look at that water line on that road, on that wall over there. We went inside of our trailer. Everything's destroyed. Horrible. Looked like a post-apocalypse.
Seeing what you've worked for so long destroyed, it's a terrible feeling. We started walking towards my mom's house. All we seen was complete devastation. We were completely alone.
I went into my home. I prayed and I cried and I fell asleep. And for some reason, when I opened my eyes, I went directly toward my front door. And when I opened my door, I saw my daughter.
After walking maybe a mile and a half, seeing my mom, especially after that goodbye phone call, it felt like just a weight had been lifted off of me, that we had survived.
We fly back to the airport, and Holly Ann just breaks down crying. She tells me, I don't know where my husband is. Everything I own is gone.
When I got to the airport, I asked probably 7 or 8 people. They didn't know where my husband was. And then I walked inside of the terminal, and I see my husband laying in the floor, covered in white plastic. And I panicked. I thought they had him covered because he was gone. He wasn't gone. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes."
When I felt the house break loose, I grabbed my wife under one arm, grabbed my daughter under the other, and I was holding on to them when the home actually hit the bridge. I ended up downstream a little bit farther than everybody else. I got hung up in a tree downstream somehow. It was probably at least 10 hours in that tree before Ronnie ever showed up. He kept trying to tell me, I got help coming, hold on, hold on. But by that time, I was so worried about my family that I thought they had already passed away. I honestly didn't want to survive if they weren't there. But he sat there and he talked to me, kept me calm before the National Guard could actually get to me.
I didn't know he was even alive until we got to the hospital. It's definitely a miracle for sure.
We all broke down in tears. I just don't understand how any of us survived, to be honest with you. I really don't.
Down in eastern Kentucky, the devil tried and he failed. Come hell or high water, these mountains prevail.
Everybody you talked to would call where I lived ground zero. None of us belong here. I honestly don't know how we're here or why we're here. God has a purpose. We just have to figure out what it is.
You were in this eddy current back here.
We're all together, and that's a blessing by itself. And now I have a little baby girl, and she's the best thing ever. She's my little miracle baby.
I think we did a total of 40 hoists that day. We rescued a husband and wife, kept a family together. My own personal opinion is it's the best thing the Guard does. Be able to actually help people in your own state, it's the best part of this.
My children keep me going, wanting to give them back what they lost, get them back into a home that they deserved. That is what got me through everything. It's a work in progress, but we're almost there.
Those who are lost, we just pray for their souls.
There was close to 50 people lost their lives, not just in this county, but surrounding counties. Around 10,000 homes, and people's whole lives just washed away. It was heartwarming to know that our community is going to stand together no matter what we go through. I couldn't imagine my life anywhere else.
To fly on these mountains forever on home.
I realized after losing everything that I didn't lose anything at all, because I had Sandy with me and I still had my entire family with me. I would journal normally before the flood, and it just became something I did more often after the flood. Value the people you have in your life. Take the time to be with them. Tell them that you love them. Items are replaceable. People are not. My advice is, live every day like it is your last.
Come here.